Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Tianlu. Coming up in this edition. Israel intends to build temporary military posts to ensure their operations inside the buffer zone in the Golan Heights. An investigation into the cause of an Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash in Kazakhstan is underway, with the second black box reportedly found. And mass protests have erupted across several cities in Syria over a video showing an attack on an Alawite shrine in Aleppo. We begin in the Middle East. Israel is intensifying its offensive along its border with Syria. The Israeli Defense Forces say they intend to build temporary military posts to ensure their operations during the winter months inside the buffer zone in the Golan Heights. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
So what Israel is saying is that until there's some responsible factor in Syria that can prove that it can keep the border quiet, then Israel, at least in the buffer zone, will maintain its presence. This has already gotten some international criticism, of course, from regional players such as Jordan, such as Egypt, such as Turkey, but also further afield. France, for example, has criticized the Israeli presence there. Despite all that, Israel is insisting that it will remain in that buffer zone in Syria. And what we have seen over the past week, something that we've not seen before, is clashes with locals in Syria. Israel is trying to portray an image of good relations with the locals, of taking in illegal weapon in accordance with some of the residents of the villages along the border. It may be true in some cases, but in other cases we've already seen clashes between IDF forces and local civilians. In two different incidents, 4 people have been injured in Syria. Israel is insisting it will stay there. Some locals are beginning to protest against that, and if we're looking at the next focal point of distress, it may very well be that, the buffer zone right on the Israel-Syria border.
That was Jonathan Regev reporting. Staying in Syria, mass protests have erupted across several cities in Syria over a video showing an attack on an Alawite shrine in Aleppo. The interim administration has initiated a security campaign. Officials say the operation aims to confiscate illegal weapons and detain what they describe as instigators of discord. Hida Kazwini has more from the Syrian capital.
Actually, this is one of the deadliest attacks since after of the Bashar Assad 18 days ago. Actually, the newly formed government is facing now a big challenge. The whole story started when a video circulated online about burning one of the Alawite shrine in Aleppo. That video about that violation actually drew demonstrations all across the city of Tartus in the coastal city and the city of Latakia also on the coast, and some places in middle Syria and Homs, and in some parts actually where Alawite live in Damascus countryside. The ambush came later after that, killed around 14 members of the police of the HTS-linked government. Actually, HTS-linked government has deployed hundreds of militants to sweep the area and to took off the weapons from the hands of the fallen Assad supporters in that region. The mission of the newly formed government is not going to be easy. We know that Tartus and Latakia are the strongholds of the fallen Assad government, and they are Alawite, mainly they are Alawite, and they are very pro-Assad. They are experienced fighters because they were the previous Syrian army militants, in general, soldiers, and they have many weapons. Of course, one of the biggest point about this mission is how to reach the areas of the Alawites there, because they are hard terrains for any battles coming. Now, there are calls from many people to calm the situation in that province, especially in Tartus, but those calls are not getting any reaction from both warring parties there. Actually, the clashes are still continuing there, and no one knows when it is going to end. For the Syrian people, they are concerned now about this kind of clashes is going to extend. If it continues for more days, then it is going to convert into a civil war now that is really hard to contain. There are some kind of curfews in some points in the coastal cities and in some places actually in Damascus. And we can see in Damascus, for example, we hear a lot of sound of bullet shots and clashes nearby Damascus, and there are some routes cut until now.
That was Hida Kazwini reporting. Elsewhere in the Middle East, Israel's military operation in Gaza continues as the new year approaches. Its strikes have caused one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world and unprecedented levels of damage on infrastructure in the Strip. The Gaza Health Ministry says over 45,000 Palestinians have died since October last year. Nadra Al-Tibi has more from central Gaza.
Throughout 2024, the Israeli army expanded the scope of its military operations in the Gaza Strip. It invaded the cities of Khan Yunis and Rafah in the south and the cities in the northern Gaza Strip, one after the other, besieging and preventing humanitarian supplies from reaching them. Since the beginning of October this year, the Israeli army has launched a concentrated military operation in the northern Gaza Strip, which is still ongoing. Hospitals and residential neighborhoods have been subjected to a large-scale attack, and hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been forced to evacuate amid an escalating humanitarian crisis.
The situation in Gaza Strip has been catastrophic and is moving from bad to worse. Civilians have been paying heavy the cost due to the hostilities and the fighting. They are entrapped in a closed loop of displacement, hunger, lack of safety. Civilians in northern Gaza Strip for several weeks have been facing horrendous situations. They are exposed to all kinds of risks.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health says the systematic targeting of homes has led to more than 1,400 Palestinian families being wiped out. Nurse Ashraf al-Attar was the sole survivor after Israeli missile destroyed his home and killed his entire family.
A crime was committed against my entire family, my children and my wife. We were sitting at home like any family who are safely in their home. We did not pose a threat to anyone, and we were not warned in advance. Suddenly, a missile hit us and turned my children into pieces.
According to the United Nations, 90% of Gaza's population has been displaced and its people are enduring extremely harsh conditions. Many have taken refuge in bombed schools. The elderly civilian Talat al-Siksik pitched his tent on the beach to escape the bombing, but the tide posed a threat while they were sleeping.
Of course we were drowning. Our belongings are gone. How will we get new things in the current situation? And there's nothing, not even money, to buy things with. When the seawater flooded us, we were seriously harmed.
According to a report by the UN's OCHA, approximately 986 health workers have been killed, and only 17 of 36 hospitals in Gaza remain after they were bombed and the Palestinian health sector collapsed.
Currently, only a few hospitals have still the capacity to run and provide care. So it's a real problem. It's a real healthcare system challenge every day for the patient to be able to access the needed care, and a lot of them can't right now.
Muhammad Awad is one of the Palestinian journalists who managed to leave Gaza for Cairo before the Rafah crossing was closed. His family were killed in an Israeli bombardment, while the number of journalists killed in the Strip has risen to 196.
I moved to Cairo after the long and extended displacement process and after my family was targeted on the 6th of January. I moved here to work through the Al Arabia Channel office to follow up on field news in the Gaza Strip and coordinate with my colleagues who are still working in the field in order to transmit their images.
The infrastructure in Gaza has been devastated, with more than 66% of residential buildings damaged. According to the United Nations, 90% of Gaza's population has been displaced, and 84% of Gaza has been subjected to forced Israeli evacuation orders, with most Palestinians trapped in just 10% of the coastal strip. As winter sets in, the suffering of the hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians who are crowded into the dilapidated tents with their children amidst catastrophic health and pursued by Israeli bombs, cold and hunger is increasing, and as the world enters 2025, many here hope for that long-awaited, still elusive ceasefire.
That was Nadra Al-Tibi reporting. Turning to Asia, an investigation into the cause of an Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash in Kazakhstan is underway. Russian media reports say that rescuers have found a second black box at the site of the crash. 38 people died while 29 others survived. Egrem Kali has more from Astana.
December 26 was declared a day of mourning in Azerbaijan in connection with the crash of a passenger plane near the city of Aktau in Kazakhstan. There are dozens of people who are coming and bringing flowers, toys and posters with the words of support. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev signed a decree on Wednesday saying that he shares the grief of the families of those killed in the accident. The national flag of Azerbaijan was also lowered in Astana in memory of victims of the crash. Kazakh Prime Minister Oljas Biktenov visited the Azerbaijani embassy and left a note in the book of condolences for the passengers who died in the crashed Embraer 190 aircraft operated by Azerbaijan Airlines.
I'm a Kazakh, Korean and Azerbaijani. My mother is a Korean and half Azerbaijani. So the situation really important for our family to support the Azerbaijan. So today I come to the Azerbaijani embassy to also demonstrate our support for all people from the Azerbaijan.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Emergency Situations of the Republic of Kazakhstan established a command center in Astana, the capital city of Kazakhstan. It is from here that all work on the organization of comprehensive assistance is monitored directly in Aktau. 235 personnel are working at the scene. 98 pieces of equipment are involved. Of the 38 dead, 10 people have been identified. 3 citizens of Kazakhstan, 3 of Russia, and 4 of Azerbaijan. Work continues on identifying the rest. 20 injured people remain in hospitals. All 29 hospitalized have been identified. 2 planes of the Azerbaijani delegation with 14 injured are expected to depart from Aktau.
Additionally, a black box was discovered by the Ministry of Emergency Situation Research search team yesterday. Around the clock, duty has been organized at the crash site. Currently, a government commission is in Aktau to investigate the causes of the accident.
A delegation of the State Agency for Civil Aviation of the Republic of Azerbaijan, as well as representatives of Azerbaijan Airlines, have arrived in Kazakhstan. Representatives of the Embraer aircraft and CINIPA, a Brazilian Center for the Investigation and Prevention Air Disasters, have also come to Astana.
That was Egrem Kali reporting. Finally, in Africa, environmental experts have praised an initiative aimed at slowing down coastal erosion in Togo. A variety of factors has led to the loss of large areas along the shoreline, forcing residents to move further inland to protect themselves. Insiders say the initiative can not only protect the coastline and its communities, but also bring much more biodiversity to local environments. Daniel Arapmoy has more.
A few years ago, Emmanuel Agodo and his family lived close to the beach. Today, this old well is the indicator of the boundaries of his former home.
One day, I found that the first bedroom of my house had been swallowed up by the sea. My wife and children picked up our things. I had to move the house back a bit. Now, we are staying in another house just next door.
Every year, between 5 and 10 meters of coastline disappear under the water due to uncontrolled urbanization, sand harvesting and climate change, leading to the rise of the sea levels.
The school you see here had to close because of coastal erosion. The villages of Dovikop and Betsam are now partly in the sea. Coastal erosion began in 1968. In 2014, it got even worse after the construction of the deepwater port.
Dozens of families are fleeing the coast despite efforts to curb the phenomenon, including installation of dikes. A project supported by the World Bank aims to protect over 15 kilometers of coastline using the combination of dikes and reforestation. According to the Togolese Ministry of Environment, the West Africa Coastal Areas Management Program has already benefited over 5,000 families. Experts have also lauded the initiative.
It's a project that has made a major contribution, particularly to the reforestation of mangroves, which play an essential role in protecting biodiversity and the development of flora.
While the initiative may seem like a drop in the ocean at the moment, residents here hope that fewer of their houses will be lost to the sea.
That was Daniel Arapmoy reporting. Now recapping the headlines. Israel intends to build temporary military posts to ensure their operations inside the buffer zone in the Golan Heights. An investigation into the cause of an Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash in Kazakhstan is underway, with the second black box reportedly found. And mass protests have erupted across several cities in Syria over a video showing an attack on an Alawite shrine in Aleppo. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Tianlu. Thank you for listening.